We are now recording. So I guess we'll just rock and roll. I guess I just introduced myself, Michael Schwartz. I'm the director of the Virginia Tech Seafood AREC, located in Hampton, Virginia. And I guess today is the Seafood AREC's turn on the AREC PowerPoint series, which I think is fantastic. And I guess with that, I will go ahead and fire up the PowerPoint unless there's any questions. See what I need to do here. Open. And share. Could be this one. Is everybody seeing an intro slide as the entire screen?
Yep, you're good to go.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, thank you, everybody. And yeah, in reference to everybody's time, we're just going to kind of roll right into this. And we'll proceed with our PowerPoint. So the Virginia Seafood AREC has been here in Hampton, Virginia since 1975. And was kind of set up as a one-stop shop for anything and everything related to seafood. Fisheries, aquaculture, seafood quality, seafood safety, value added, consumer education. And for that purpose, it was located here on the coast. You can see the Hampton River right behind us on that slide on a sunset. And that's actually very close to the opening of the James River, where it opens up to the Chesapeake. And we're on the peninsula where I-64 goes into the downtown, into the Hampton Roads Tunnel, and then comes up in Norfolk. So we're on the peninsula side. This is probably needs a little bit of updating, but kind of shows the growth that we've had in the program. The dotted dash circles on the left are the positions we had in 2017. And the additional ones in orange have been added since 2017. A majority of our folks here are soft funded. And then on the right-hand side, we have adjunct faculty that include both retirees and folks that we've brought in. And these are all subject matter folks on a variety of areas that you will see represented when we go through some of our programmatic pillars. Here is kind of like an ever-evolving schematic of the world we interact with on a daily basis. It looks like my mouse is working here. So we kind of have our typical affiliations with local universities. Here's Hampton University, outreach, industry. We have a Virginia Air and Space Museum adjacent to our facility, which is really good for outreach and engagement. We have representation like probably all the other ARECs in different commodity associations. A lot of ours are in seafood and economics. We have a new program that started this year, K-12 outreach and experiential learning. That's been going extremely well under Tiffany Wood. There are some updates on that on our website. The blue line here, we have omnibus programming. So we do get some soft funding every year from Virginia Sea Grant, which is part of National Sea Grant. And this is really helpful. It gives us direct connectivity to a lot of other institutions and researchers that are doing work in our fields of interest. So it gives us a very nice connectivity. We are involved with, very supportive with Kaya, an associate director on the Center Controlled Environmental Agriculture Innovation. We also have a Blue Catfish initiative through Kaya, which I'll reference briefly. And we also have an expanding bioprocessing collaboration with Biological Systems Engineering and AB. We, of course, have leadership connectivity to Ag Experiment Station, which, of course, goes to CALS, which is part of Virginia Tech. But through CALS, we work very closely with Cooperative Extension at Virginia State University, and a lot of this kind of focuses in the areas of controlled environmental agriculture, aquaculture, food safety, and we're expanding that linkage with K-12. Of course, Virginia Tech gets some formula funds from the state. The Center for Coastal Studies has been housed in Blacksburg, but through that, we have created the Virginia Tech Coastal Collaborator, which I'll discuss briefly, as well as our Seafood Economics and Marketing Research Program. I have a few slides on those. And then we have gubernatorial appointments on the Virginia Marine Products Board, as well as the Virginia Aquaculture Advisory Board, and also on the Aquaculture Commodities at Farm Bureau. So that's kind of the world that we interact with on a regular basis, and this slide kind of helps us keep grounded in those connectivities and make connections with those whenever we can. The aquaculture program at the Seafood AREC started in 1997. When I came to Virginia Tech from Texas to initiate a marine aquaculture program. So I'll just kind of zip through a couple of slides in here. And if there's any interest, we have a very significant training and internship program. We're over 300 since 2006. We bring people to the center, graduates, undergraduates, postdocs, visiting faculty. We work with Governor's School, we work with workforce development, a lot of this focused in the aquaculture area, but also expanding into food safety, bioprocessing, value add, food engineering, etc. So any interests, we're always happy to collaborate on those and bring in new entities and partners for those, as well as a fairly heavy public education with the majority of the focus on K-12 and Governor's School. All of the applied research, these are species we've worked with to date. You'll see freshwater, you'll see marine, warm water, cold water. You'll see fish, you'll see shellfish, ornamentals. Ornamentals would be like your Nemos and Dories, or the fish that you purchase in the aquarium stores or PetSmart. I also work with shrimp, freshwater shrimp, saltwater shrimp. All of the work we've done to date, and these are all species we've worked with, are all applied research with industry. In other words, industry comes to us with a need. Could be reproduction, could be growth rate, could be nutrition, could be systems, could be disease control, and we'll develop programming around those needs. That's why we see such a long list of species we've worked with. Those are the requests and support that we've gotten and given to industry. This is one of our new aquaculture rooms in the new building. And we do have at our website a virtual 360 tour. So I urge anyone interested in seeing some more to go to the Virginia Seafood AREC. Without going into too much detail, this is a very robust, scientifically sound research system that we can operate in groups of 3 tanks, 6 tanks, 12 tanks, or 24 tanks, depending on whether we're doing water quality, water chemistry, nutrition work. And here's just a few of the fish that have already been worked on in this area. Again, the 360 tour does a fairly nice job of looking through here, and as well as a lot of the other workshops and R&D rooms we have on the second floor. Again, as I mentioned, a lot of our strategic initiatives are industry grounded. We're currently working on a phosphorus removal, Department of Energy SBIR phase 2. We actually just did our first week 4 data point on the phase 2 trial, and it looks like we removed 50% of the phosphorus on a single pass in a recirculating system. What's interesting here is phosphorus and nitrogen are kind of the two main compounds we're worried about when we talk about like Chesapeake Bay health or receiving waters. Industrial treatments. Nitrogen and phosphorus are the ones we try to eliminate or minimize before going into receiving waters. So again, looking at diversified research portfolios, Department of Energy and Department of Defense, we've gotten some funding from. We also have a large project that's initiated this year looking at off flavor. These are just examples working with Riverence. This is the largest North American trout aquaculture company. with operations in 3 states and also international. And so here we're working on some off flavor tied to aquaculture systems. And then on the bottom, we can see Viviana. We've done a fair bit of work with experts from Brazil, looking at producing shrimp. This is the white shrimp urbanimi. And here we're producing those in zero discharge systems where the entire life cycle of the shrimp is grown in our example here, a 40-gallon tank, and that water is not exchanged. It's recycled over and over. Here you can just see some of the trout eggs that are being hatched at the AREC, and we actually have some downstairs right now that we just received from Riverence for another nutrition palatability study. So just a little bit of work in the aquaculture areas that we have. I think a lot of you are familiar with, and Virginia Tech is getting very engaged with controlled environmental agriculture. Our facility, together with SPES and the Institute for Advanced Learning and Research, has helped move the Controlled Environmental Agriculture Innovation Center forward. Here we can see some of the systems that we have in Danville. This is cross-disciplinary programming in Kaya, and we welcome anybody interested in any aspects of hydroponics, aquaponics. For those familiar, we just installed this week 3 closed hydroponic systems from Babylon in Richmond. These are really nice systems that we will be using for our K-12 governor's school and internship training programs. We'll try to get some slides of those taken and uploaded in here as well. And examples of innovative technologies to address climate change issues. We're an internationally recognized center of excellence for recirculating aquaculture technologies, where water is recycled indoors for the production of plants and animals. The shellfish industry in Virginia, as well as the East Coast, West Coast, Gulf Coast, and around the world, is really struggling with hatchery survivals due to degrading water quality conditions in coastal zones where these hatcheries are located. So we have been working with some of our recirculating system technologies. We can see here in the middle, this is oyster seed holding. This is the 4th generation recycling system being used for the production of shellfish, and the results are very good. And we're having other hatcheries now requesting the same type of support. An example of technology development and adaptation through Kaya to help address climate change challenges in our agriculture sectors. And moving along, seafood quality, safety, and consumer education. This has been the bedrock of our program and the reason for its initial development in 1975 to enhance seafood quality and safety. Dr. Catherine Paraga Estrada was the lead of this program. She just left us a couple of weeks ago. She's now doing food safety at Purdue. So we have her position actually advertised at this moment, and we are screening applicants. So if you know of anybody that works in food quality, food safety, with seafood component, please let us know or reference them to the Virginia Tech Job Board. But in this program, again, has been in process since 1975. We work with all aspects of the seafood value chain. We work with the fisher folk, we work with the aquaculturists, the seafood processors, the distributors, the wholesalers, the value-added companies. We work with the federal regulatory agencies, USDA, Catfish, FDA, Seafood, our state regulatory partners, and with those directly support all aspects of the seafood industry, not only in Virginia, but also across the US. A lot of training, a lot of technical assistance. Here we can see some of the certifications that we do through our seafood program. We are a national FDA Hazard Analysis Critical Control Point Training Center, HACCP, for those of you involved in the food safety aspects. But you can also see here the other trainings and certifications that we do through the Seafood AREC. A lot of work with the Food Safety Modernization Act. There's a lot of new food safety regulations Again, working with industry to help understand and implement a lot of these new requirements. And again, you'll see seafood safety a lot, but we also work with pork and poultry and really any other food sectors, even bread manufacturing companies and things. And on average, we work with about 60 companies per year, both in-state and out-of-state, and service about 200 clients, a client being someone that's received direct support and some type of a certification or training. So again, it very, and this is still our main bread and butter that we do here at the Seafood AREC for our industry and stakeholder clientele. As always, as with other agricultural sectors and commodities and crops, there's always new initiatives to try to do a value add, to try to capture another aspect of the value chain. And seafood is no different. We're seeing lots of companies popping up or existing companies that are trying to not only process a trout, but to smoke a trout, not only to grow a fish, but then to produce a sushi product, just as examples. And a big part of that then, of course, is food safety applied with any of these processes. So again, then all of the HACCP training, the HACCP plans, the monitoring and the microbial analysis as we work with these companies to help not only create a safe process, but then also to do validations for those processes. So again, a very important aspect of the program here. And we also have, this started probably 2 years ago, about 95% of seafood consumed in the US is consumed in restaurants. And one of the main reasons for that is people are just not very comfortable cooking seafood at home, and they don't, the recipes or this or that or the other. So this program is designed initially around Virginia seafood and aquaculture products. We do demonstrations in our teaching classroom. These are video streamed live and also housed on our servers. And so there's a series of Eat More Fish. We have an oyster one. I think we have 1 or 2 blue catfish ones, and we'll be cycling with others. Again, just a great place to come and see about new seafood recipes and different ways to cook seafood at home. And again, here's just another example. This is something that's very new. In fact, we're currently working on a NOAA Saltonstall Kennedy grant proposal. Another example of a value add, we now have dry aged fish. These are not cooked, these are not smoked. It's literally just a dry aging, like hanging beef for 30 or 40 days. This is something that's quickly going across the US, but there is no comprehensive HACCP plans or food quality, food safety plans either at the federal or state level. So we're working on doing that. And then, of course, not only developing those SOPs and processes, but then also backing them up with micro data and quality and safety. So look for this coming in your restaurants in the not immediate future, but probably the next 2, 3, 4 years. This is going to become much more prevalent. Again, just an example of agriculture and food producers and processors trying to get additional value for their companies in processing. Dr. Yiming Feng is a fairly new tenure-track faculty, tenure in biological systems engineering, and he leads our bioprocessing validation engineering. Very important in really all of our food manufacturing sectors. Here we can see examples of automation. Up on the top, we can see some smoked salmon being sliced for a Novolux. In the middle, we can see aero farms. This is the direction we're going when we talk about controlled environmental agriculture. This was a plant they had in New Jersey, but an even larger plant is under production and may already have some production in it in Danville, Virginia by IALR. And again, just looking at automation, processing, smart farm innovation networks to integrate modern technologies to advance the needle and economic viability of food manufacturing. Data science is also a fairly significant part of that, as well as just standard processing, sorting, pulling out rejections from a process line, whether this is grains or oysters or clams or, any type of a food product. we have major workforce limitations in our food sectors in the US. And as highlighted in Kaya, AI, machine learning, and automation is going to be a pivotal component to helping keep our food manufacturing sectors competitive and viable in an international industry. And again, you can just see a few other areas that this area works in. And we also have, a biomanufacturing summit coming up in Richmond, I think, in a couple of weeks. This falls under a large bioprocessing initiative we have within Kaya, and really across integrating many aspects across the university. The part that we've been working on with United Sorghum Checkoff Funds is creating new novel sorghum protein concentrates. And we can see here, this is actually about an 80% protein, sorghum protein concentrate. And there's interest for this in both foods and feeds. We're currently working with 3 aquaculture species to test it, but there's also interest to put this into energy bars and foods. What's interesting with the sorghum, and we've worked with some of the ARECs, and we may have some more coming online, sorghum is the only non-GMO grain crop that we have in the US. And if you're going to grow a non-GMO animal or have a non-GMO food item like a sports bar, all the ingredients have to be non-GMO. So as a grain, that makes sorghum very valuable. Also working on black soldier fly, algae, and other bioprocessing aspects to move the needle on byproduct valorization, producing proteins, lipids, and other compounds to again bring economy back into our food production sectors. This is a program that we have had a hiatus on for about 1.5 years. We have a position getting ready to go back out, tenure track. In food engineering, there's a huge industrial push internationally in the area of lab cultured meats. And we've heard about some of these. Different countries have different opinions, and there's consumer opinions on all this. But at the end of the day, with increases in populations around the world, in seafood, we have fisheries, and we're optimizing those the best we can. We have aquaculture that's growing at about 6 to 8% per year globally. Those cannot keep up with the seafood demand. So there's massive venture capital going into cellular agriculture, and we are particularly focusing on seafood and primarily looking at the media that's being used to grow the cells, getting those media from these industry byproducts instead of fetal bovine embryos, and also working on the scaffolding. So again, this is, probably 5-10 years away from having salmon fillets in the markets, but that's the direction this is going. And again, it creates the third leg of food manufacturing, wild agriculture, and then cell culture. So moving on the needle with that. Also, and this is under Dr. Yiming Feng's engineering program here, is there's strong interests and initiatives to get away from plastics throughout these food manufacturing sectors, packaging, and all that. So here, working on different plant and insect-based compounds to replace plastic for packaging, refrigerating, freezing, etc. Again, moving the needle on sustainability. And you'll see here on the right of all these slides, we're seeing a lot of the same things. We can use insect culture, we can use plant extracts for bioplastics, for cellular agriculture, for alternative feeds and foods. So again, just this whole biomanufacturing component that we're pushing at Virginia Tech really has very long and deep roots accelerating in industrial food manufacturing. Not going to spend really too much time on this, but this is just, again, an example of climate change and invasive species. We have a blue catfish that's in the Chesapeake Bay now, was introduced in the 70s. It's an apex predator, and it's gone from a stocking of 300,000 juveniles to now a standing biomass somewhere between 700 million and 1 billion pounds in the Chesapeake. We can see here all their ranges in blue and brown. And here what's happening is one of our local processing plants across the street that buys fish from local watermen. We can see here how the blue catfish is displacing all of our other seafood commodities in the Chesapeake Bay, to where last year 98% of what he purchased was blue catfish because the others were not being caught by the watermen. And now these populations are so high that these blue catfish, which are freshwater fish, are down to about 1/3 to 1/2 strength seawater. They're in the Chesapeake, and here is about a 2-pound blue catfish that has about 75 to 100 clams in its belly. So they're now feeding on our clams and oysters. Here's another one that's about a 7 to 8-pound fish. 18 blue crabs were counted in this one fish, and blue crabs up to 4 inches point to point. So what's happening is these invasive species are decimating our Chesapeake Bay ecosystem, adversely affecting our traditional fisheries. And now Virginia Tech is involved in a very comprehensive initiative to turn this invasive species into a sustainable fishery that can probably transform and revitalize our 400-year historic seafood industry that we do have here in Virginia. I also mentioned earlier CMAR, Dr. Jonathan Van Sant, and also an associate director here at the Seafood AREC. Jonathan is lead on this program, and it's located off-site, about 2 blocks away. We can see here just some of the work that Jonathan's team works on. And this team is expanding, and there's opportunities to do these types of works for other agricultural commodities. So we welcome any discussions in these areas. Here we can see some of the really pioneering work that CMAR has done is looking at some of the cost of regulations in aquaculture. He's done 6 species, looking at both federal and state regulations and unintended economic costs of those regulations. Again, some really pioneering work, and we can move that across other agricultural commodities as needed and appropriate and beneficial. Looking also at a lot of economic impacts. CMAR, using 2019 data, did a seafood economic impact of the Virginia seafood industry, again done with pre-COVID 2019 data. That was about 1.1 billion and a little more than 7,000 jobs. This type of information was immediately used in Richmond and Washington to help our representatives and senators and folks to understand and be able to discuss the value of the seafood industry when legislation or bills came across looking at some different aspects of our sectors. So this type of data generation is extremely important. We have received funding to redo this study with 2023 data. The project just initiated. This did not include retail. This did not include restaurants. And we mentioned earlier that most 95% of seafood is consumed in restaurants. So we now have additional funding to redo the entire data set, but include retail, include restaurants. So I'm anticipating this number to be probably between $2 and $3 billion and many, many more jobs. Again, this type of work we can help with in other commodity areas, and Jonathan Van Sant would be the contact for that. We see great growth opportunities for these types of works in other agricultural sectors. And again, just looking at consumer studies, I think Jonathan has a beautiful slide put together here. Both people are looking at the same thing and they're seeing completely opposite things. These are difficult studies to do, but CMAR has the experience to do these and do these well. So any interests to do this type of work in other food sectors or manufacturing, we're happy to have those discussions. We have a very strong communications and outreach program. This started back in 2021. I mentioned earlier the 360-degree tour of the AREC is on our website, so you can go into the different areas and we can see some of the different areas that this program has been working on. We're fortunate to have 2 other communicators working with other ARECs and working to help expand that, because we do just wonderful things at the AREC, and getting information out is one of our Achilles heels, and we can never get it all out. There's always so many wonderful things going on. So looking to move the needle and help move the needle to get more and more communications going out to our stakeholders. And of course, here we have initiated some new STEM days with K-12, working with VSU, Hampton University, Chesapeake Bay Foundation, and really starting to get some fantastic student outreach programming going, and with fantastic results, and it keeps getting bigger and bigger. So any of these initiatives that anyone's interested with or being involved or knowing more, please reach out. We're finding this to be really important when we start talking about impact, connectivity, stakeholders. This is a really important aspect of our program, and it's growing very quickly. New facilities again, since we're on a Zoom, nobody's here. This is our new facility. We can actually see here our old facility that we had been in since 1975. This is actually an old oyster processing building, and there's pictures from the 70s and 80s where there were piles of oyster shell larger than our building on this lot with conveyor belts, almost like the coal yards in Newport News. So this is our new building. We moved into it in 2022. We designed in coastal resilience. We were able to elevate the facility. So we do flood here. This facility flooded on a regular basis. We even nowadays get a little bit of water in the street, particularly on king tides in the fall. But if it gets high enough, we just don't come to work, but nothing at the lab. Everything is above. We leave the elevator high. We have a full generator on the roof that can run the entire facility. So we really have developed a robust, modern, and future-looking, resilient coastal model for research and education and construction facilities. We're really proud of this facility. And I mentioned also we have the Virginia Tech Coastal Collaborator as well as CMAR. They're both located at 27 West Queensway in Hampton, and also are linked to on our website. This is Jonathan's CMAR program on the 2nd floor. It's a 5-office suite. And then we have downstairs the entire 1st floor, 14 offices, R&D bench space, full heat, light, electric, computer. Offices are fully furnished. There's space here. If we have stakeholders that need short-term space or potentially even long-term space, we have one agency that's already positioned someone. We have this facility available. The push is coastal resilience and all aspects thereof. Dr. Wendy Stout is a relatively new director this year that is running this program and expanding the program. Here are some examples of folks that have been using the Virginia Tech Coastal Collaborator. CNR, they're doing some marine fisheries work in the Atlantic. Robotics and autonomy with the College of Engineering. Here's again some renewable energies. Just as a quick example of the value of these types of interactions, and something we're so good at all of our ARECs. You know, this individual has designed unmanned submersibles that run around the Chesapeake Bay and collect acoustic data. What he's done is create a platform for other types of science research. We can monitor shellfish, aquaculture beds. We can monitor water quality, water chemistry. We can look for contaminants. You know, so by integrating under Kaya all these different innovations, there's so many different ways they can be linked and connected. And the sum is greater than the parts of what we're bringing together here. So just another example of cross-leveraging and cross-linking technologies. Under the Coastal Collaborator, there's a lot of activity now with all of our military bases because they're in the coastal zones, and sustainability and longevity is a problem. So very good traction with all of the military sectors, and through the AREC and VTCC, we've also been working with some of our tribal communities in Virginia. I think we have 3 now federally recognized, which really helps move the needle. And here we're looking at shoreline restoration, shellfish aquaculture, trying to make their lands more resilient, and also economic opportunities for their children and members of the reservation to maintain economic viability. So anyone with activities in these areas, we'd love to link together and see what we can do to integrate on those. Again, here's Dr. Wendy Stout on the right with some faculty from some different colleges in Blacksburg. And then research expenditures, one of the initiatives, we undertook 2 initiatives when I took over as director. One was to get a new building. That took us about 5 years. We had a 5-year plan, so we just about hit that. The other one, we looked back at research expenditures. At the ARECs, we're always busy, working with stakeholders and integrating science in applied ways, but certainly one of our metrics are research expenditures, and they help as part of the story for communicating the value of ARECs. The Virginia Seafood AREC had a research expenditure of about $180,000 to $200,000 a year prior to 2017. Everything we get here, we don't have any line items, we don't have any commodity funds or anything. Any money we get comes from grants that are written to state or federal agencies. So we made a 5-year plan to shoot for $1 million, shoot high and hope for the best, again, to elevate the program. Concurrently, we're trying to get a new building. And so we shot for $1 million in 5 years. We got into the facility in 2022. And you can see in the programs that we've added to the Seafood AREC, we are still the Seafood AREC. We will always be the Seafood AREC, but you saw in our programmatic pillar discussion, a lot of new areas. A lot of those new areas are responsible for this very rapid rise in basically in research expenditures, which again, soft funded. We now get funding from Department of Energy. We have some grants with Department of Defense. There's many new areas in the areas of food safety, food security, climate resilience. We're no longer just in the standard funding agencies that we know of agriculturally. We have Department of Energy, Department of Defense, food safety, food security. This applies across all of our food sectors and all of our ARECs. So this is just an example of really looking to diversify R&D portfolios because there's a lot more money out there than in the traditional places we've been looking. And I think with that, I will end the presentation and open up for questions. And we're still recording. So do we have any questions out there? Happy to field anything or share any perspectives. Mighty quiet. Can anybody hear me?
Michael, I'll ask a question.
I was like, boy, it sure is quiet. I must have put everybody to sleep.
What's the difference between freshwater shrimp and saltwater shrimp in terms of taste and whatnot? I'm not that familiar with freshwater shrimp.
That's a very good question. They're quite different. The freshwater shrimp you might be familiar with, they're called freshwater prawn or macrobrachium. They grow quite large. They have a softer texture. The average person that likes shrimp will probably not like freshwater shrimp that much. If it's just a little bit less flavor, they're grown in fresh water, so they don't get the salt and the flavors from the marine food chain. They're much more expensive in the store. If they're cooked in a lot of sauces and flavors, I could just about serve you both, and you would think they're almost the same thing. But you won't see many in the store, and if you see them, they're pretty expensive. There's not very high production. That's a good question. I haven't had that one in a long time. I appreciate the question. Anybody else? Okay, I guess this is automatically recorded and stored somewhere. No, Matthew's not on. Jeff or Mark, do you know, is this automatically being stored somewhere? Is there anything I need to do?
He said it'll go right to the cloud, then he'll get an email. So we're good.
Fantastic. Okay, well, appreciate everybody joining in, and yeah, last chance for any questions. Otherwise, I'm gonna wish you guys a fantastic rest of the Friday. It looks like we're all in for super great weather this weekend. So enjoy.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.